What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 228 on this Thursday, November 20th, 2025. Josh Callaway, Collin Kennedy with you on a Thursday. Thursday as we talk recruiting. We've got some stuff to get into today. Oklahoma staying hot in 2027. Another commit into the boat this week, riding the momentum after the big win over Alabama. We'll talk about some of the other positive updates there. Got the right guy to talk to about it here with our guy CK. We're going to do some of the other things. And of course, we'll preview the weekend ahead with Missouri coming in. Who are some of the visitors to know that Oklahoma will be hosting in Norman this weekend? Some key names there in 2026 in particular, too. So keep an eye on for that. And of course, we'll hit the college football playoff rankings on Tuesday night as well. Some thoughts there. Oklahoma sitting at number 8. We'll kind of touch on that a little bit as well on the back end. A reminder, as always, before we get started, you can subscribe to Sooners Illustrated at oklahoma.247sports.com. Use the promo code SoonersPod60, all one word for listening on podcast, capital S, capital P, 60% off a VIP membership for a year to Sooners Illustrated and the entire 24/7 Sports Network. Be sure to jump on that. The season's starting to wind down here, so jump on that. Take advantage of it while you can. All right, CK, let's get into it. Obviously, 2027 class has been off to a great start, and it's, I'm sure, not hurting the fact that Oklahoma is winning and winning big. Obviously, here lately, some huge wins in Tennessee and in Alabama. We'll talk about some of the ripple effects of the win over the Crimson Tide, but let's first start with the addition of the weekend, or of the week, I should say, with Mikyal Davis, a 3-star cornerback from Goodyear, Arizona. He jumps into the boat this week, becomes the 7th guy committed for Oklahoma in 2027. Talk about the player, man, and kind of what Oklahoma's getting here with the Arizona product with Mikyal Davis, another addition to this class that's right at the top right now in the country. Is, we've talked about it, off to a great start on offense in particular. Now they're starting to make some defensive additions as well. What are the thoughts here with Davis, and what kind of addition is this to Oklahoma's class in 2027?
Yeah, first and foremost, I mean, this is one that Oklahoma had been in really solid standing with for quite a while. And it really started to pick up as far as noise behind the scenes a week or two ago. Like, hey, maybe this thing ends up getting done rather quickly. And even going into the weekend of the game against Alabama, there was chatter, hey, sounds like Mikyal Davis in Oklahoma very much going to be a thing. He was scheduled to go to Tuscaloosa to watch Oklahoma play Alabama. He ends up not taking that visit because I think he had a pretty good sense of where he wanted to go.
Yeah.
And then, oh, by the way, Oklahoma ended up winning that football game. And so,
yeah, right.
I don't think it took much more for this guy to go ahead and say, you know what? Let's get it out there. Let's go ahead and say that I'm committed to Oklahoma. And Josh, I really like the get, man. So 88 3-star, which, as we've discussed, usually a good rule of thumb. If a guy's an 88 player grade, just a really high floor player. And that's who I think Mikyal Davis kind of is. 5'11", 6-foot-ish territory, 170 to 180 pounds. But there are a couple of things that really stand out for me when you examine Davis. Number one, he's got play speed. He's got all the stuff that we talk about, the buzzwords when we talk about defensive backs. But I love the fact that this guy, the best way I could briefly summarize it, plays with a ton of control. I think that this guy on the field, he makes a ton of plays in the run game. He makes a ton of plays in coverage. He is very physical and effective careening downhill and playing against screen game stuff. He can kind of do it all for you, and more on that in a second. But I love the fact that this guy seemingly is always in control. He's in control of what's taking place on the field. He's in control of his body. Body control for me when I'm looking at a defensive back is massive, because when you play out of control, even if you're playing aggressive, physical, all that stuff, that's obviously how you lead to flags, busted coverages, things of that nature. Davis, to me, is just someone who, yes, he can fly around the football field. Yes, he can make plays in different aspects of the game. But I love the fact that he's aggressive, he's physical, he's fast and all that, but he's seemingly always in control the value of that for me in a DB is pretty big. And then the other thing, Josh, I mean, we keep banging this drum, but it's like the versatility he brings to the table. This guy, when you turn on tape, is playing boundary corner, field corner, nickel, split safety. And I mean, again, when you look at Oklahoma's defense, they obviously want guys who could kind of, as I say, occupy a 1.5 scholarship spot, maybe be able to play a few different positions in the back end,
right?
Give them some pieces to move around and some flexibility internally, especially in an era of turnovers on rosters. And I think Davis does that. I think that he is someone who could be a very effective slot corner at the next level. He's obviously going to get a chance to play outside corner at Oklahoma as well. But if they needed him to, I think he could kick into the back end and play some safety as well. And for all of these reasons and more, I really like the get. It makes a ton of sense to me why they took him, and we're excited to get him this early in the process. It's another really good fit for Oklahoma, and I think Davis sees a really solid fit with the Sooners as well.
Like I said, 7th guy in 2027, their 2nd guy on defense to go with Mikyal McCreary, another Mikyal, who's a cornerback that Oklahoma has added. What's that dynamic you think like with McCreary? Like, how do those guys kind of fit together, I guess, in this class? As Jay Valai, obviously, I mean, we talk a lot about the offensive start, and for obvious reasons when you have Hackett and Penny and what they've done over there with Jackson Stokes. Like, the offensive start is incredible in 27, but what a start for Jay Valai to have these two guys in this early. What kind of a duo is that, you think, to start off for Jay Valai with these two Mikyals, with McCreary and now Davis in there?
No, I'm glad you brought it up, because this to me now was one of the most fascinating storylines for the Sooners moving forward in the 2027 cycle. And that's the thing, you know, I said we keep banging the drum. It's like Mikyal McCreary, Mikyal Davis, kind of similar in that I think they can do a lot of different things. They have the ability to go play corner, play in the slot, play safety, and they're both guys willing and able to do so, right? And I think that at least provides them the opportunity to build off of this early corner duo on paper and really kind of hone in on what's now going to be an advantageous but a little bit of a tricky spot. So here's why I say that. 2027 for me is as good of a cycle in terms of cornerback recruiting for Oklahoma as I can remember in a while. They are in great position with a ton of guys out there in the class, whether, you know, just a few that come to mind for me. Juju Johnson, who just scheduled his commitment date for a couple of days after he's going to take his visit in Norman for the LSU game. Do I think that's a coincidence? Nope.
Sure.
Montre Jackson, a 4-star corner. Jerry Outhouse, a 4-star corner. Gabe Osborne, the elite in-state cornerback.
Yeah.
Then you get down and you talk about Darius Johnson, who's the younger brother of 2026 cornerback commit Derek Johnson, Trenton Blaylock, the younger brother of Corey Blaylock. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but hopefully this goes to show just how many corners, and just corners, not even talking safeties, OU is not only in on, they're in really solid standing with. At least they have been over the last few months. So now that you're out to 2, I think that you look to the horizon and you say, okay, they appear primed to pick up Juju Johnson in early December. I think that they lead for him. I think that would potentially make it 3 corners already in the 27 cycle. But because you started with guys like Davis and McCreary, who have the ability to play in the slot, maybe play some safety, I believe it was 24 maybe where they took 7 defensive backs, and that was the class with guys like Powers and Boganowski and Eli Bowen and Jaden Hart, like all those guys, right? Maybe this is setting up to be another hefty DB cycle because of not only the number of guys they're in on, but the versatility a lot of these players bring to the table and the way that Oklahoma's scheme fits them. So it is fascinating this latest commitment only furthers this dynamic, and I can't wait to see how Oklahoma navigates it, because on top of all that too, Josh, it's like they're in on a ton of safeties too. So that 27 is going to be a fun one to cover, but corner specifically, especially with these two in the boat, I'm fascinated by it.
It's good stuff from Jay Valai, man. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
I think coming into the year, Jay was probably the one defensive coach that, he had maybe, not the complete consensus approval of the fan base. I mean, you're being compared to what they're doing everywhere else defensively at linebacker on the D-line, and certainly Brandon Hall's safety room. Having a nice year. Cortland Guillory, an impact player as a freshman. Eli Bowen is playing great football. Obviously, even like guys like Davon Jordan has sprung up and played some good football this year at times. And now you have, Jacoby Johnson. Now you're recruiting like this to go with it. And you have a lot of young guys we haven't even seen yet, like a Tristan Haynes and a Malik Hawkins. Like, there's a lot of talent in that position, and they continue to add at the recruiting level, so at the high school level. So good stuff for Jay Valai in that quarterback room. So that commit for Davis comes in on Tuesday. Obviously, just a few days removed from Oklahoma's massive win out in Tuscaloosa. We talk about it all year. It's amazing what winning can do for you. Obviously, you start to win games. It makes recruiting a lot easier. And I just want to ask you, it's an obvious question. I'm sure fans are curious. What's the reaction been, and what's some of the momentum that you've seen coming out of this? Obviously, you get a big win like that, one that was it led SportsCenter for, to get that kind of, like, it was a headline type of game. I'm sure a lot of players watched the game, and Oklahoma playing well right in the thick of things in the playoff race right now. How have you seen the momentum kind of start to pick up even more so for Oklahoma after a big win like that, and, everything kind of going their way right now? What are some updates elsewhere on the recruiting side that you're seeing Oklahoma kind of, riding it a little bit right now after these big wins the last few weeks?
Yeah, I put out a story that Oklahoma fans can still go and check out. So Sooners Pod 60 available there. But I talked to a number of recruits, high-level recruits, high-priority targets for Oklahoma out of the win. And I gave them about a day to collect their thoughts, so they didn't say anything too crazy. But it was clear to me, man, I think that in the way that a lot of our perspectives changed on this Oklahoma team moving forward, the same can be said for these recruits. And they were on the field, this Oklahoma staff, calling a ton of prospects from Saban Field almost immediately after the win. Some guys that I know, just to name a couple, that they called. Crew Jones got a phone call. Gabe Osborne got a phone call. I believe Cooper Hackett, they made sure to give a ring to one of their elite in-state commits, and the list goes on. But OU wants these guys to know what they did, and they should.
Yeah.
Right? Because some really good quotes that I was given, I feel like some of what was said was basically like, hey, man, look, they're showing people what they've always been capable of. I think a lot of recruits have long recognized the internal momentum in Norman, but now that's paying off externally, and it's showing itself on the field. And with all that happening, and then, oh, by the way, these guys are seeing all the stuff about a potential push towards the college football playoff. I would encourage folks to go look at the article I put together, whether it is someone like a Gabe Osborne or a Crew Jones, or I checked in with Taven Epps. I checked in with Jaden Pettit. I checked in with some high-profile guys, and they all kind of shared a similar sentiment, basically saying what a win for the program. And it has certainly drawn their attention towards the happenings in Norman. We'll see what else comes from it, obviously, moving forward.
Yeah, no, I have to think, and I'm sure at the end of the day, it's all a case by case. It depends on the guy, right? The player. But if they can finish this off, and get to the playoff and be able to have that, Brent Venables and his staff to have that of like, look, we were just in the college football playoff, in the SEC. We won in this scenario 10 games, right? I have to think that would do a lot for this team. And obviously, when it comes to 2026, we're less than 2 weeks now until signing day. So that cycle is winding down. And we have some more names to note that we're going to get to in a second. But especially for the next cycle in 27 and even starting to get into 28, like to have a little more, not as so much of it just being like a concept and a belief in what they're building, but like it's kind of built, sort of a mindset when you go 10-2 if they can get there and get to the playoff like that. That I have to think Oklahoma's going to really reap the benefits of that if they can continue to climb and continue to get big wins and get to the playoff. That's going to be a huge thing for them.
And I don't want to contradict myself. You and I have talked about it here on this show multiple times. Individual outcomes don't carry as much weight as probably public perception would feel. But at the same time, I mean, every single victory, every proof of concept on the field at least furthers the idea of your program being a viable destination for these guys. And at the very least, that Alabama win has these guys all looking at OU going, not only are they winning a lot of games, I can't wait to see what they do towards the postseason. And exactly like you mentioned, winning over Alabama on the road is huge. But now to have 2 more home games coming up with a couple of lengthy visitor lists on the line, in addition to the college football playoff implications, they got a chance to really garner some momentum down the stretch. And whether it's 26 or even 27, man, like they can at least build on what is quite the building block. You know what I mean?
Well, too, I mean, even so when you take away the winning aspect, which everyone wants to go play for a team that's winning and a program that's winning. But like we talked about it before, I mean, the elephant in the room, the reality situation was for those 2026 kids, especially that cycle, did they really have a firm belief that Brent was going to be here, long term, and this staff was going to be here long term? Because it just, coming into the year, I think everyone kind of knew, like, the reality was like Oklahoma needs to win games, or they may have to think about making changes on the coaching staff. And certainly Brent's job was a little, I don't know if his seat was ever truly hot, but it was wobbly. I mean, they went 6-7 last year. Like, they knew they needed to win. Right now, Brent's going to be here. Like, you know that with complete certainty at this point, that he's going to be here probably for a while if they can continue this trajectory. So that's going to make it so much easier, I would have to think, in these next couple of cycles to just kind of, these players are not stupid. They know the reality of the situation, and other schools are making sure they're aware of it too. Like, hey, man, are you sure that guy's even going to be there? Like, you have that going for you much more after you're putting together a season like this. And so, good stuff for Oklahoma. A lot to feel good about, a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail for sure. And you mentioned, a couple of big home games here to close with some big visitor lists coming together. Let's get into the Missouri one for this weekend. Obviously, huge game for Oklahoma within the terms of this season. We know kind of everything that's on the line there. If they can win these 2 home games, they're going to be in the playoff. We'll talk about kind of where they stand in the rankings and stuff in just a little bit, but it's a massive game. We're going to get into on the game preview tomorrow. Tom Green will join Collin and I. Will kind of break down all the angles of the game and kind of what we're expecting to happen on Saturday. But on the recruiting side of things, the full visitor list is on Sooners Illustrated for our VIP members. You can go check it out. Check out all the names. Collin with some nuggets there on many of those names and kind of what he's watching for and why they're intriguing to him. What are a few that have your eyes in particular that you want to get into here on the show? Because it's a big opportunity. You haven't been home in a month, so you're finally back home after these big road wins. Should be a great crowd. I know it's going to be an early kick, but should be a great crowd, I would imagine. What are some of the names that you're keeping an eye on this weekend that Oklahoma can make some progress with? And the crazy thing is there's still 2026 guys, even though we're so close signing day. There's still some guys here that are going to be signing here soon that are visiting this weekend that Oklahoma's trying to swing in at the last minute here.
Yeah, so we'll start with 2026 and we'll move forward to 2027. A few notable storylines. Let me go ahead and start with this. Dane Bathurst is going to be taking his official visit in Norman this weekend. And this is someone who we haven't been able to talk about a ton, but he's a newer offer. They just pulled the trigger on this guy 6 days ago.
Right.
So relatively newer to the Sooners fan base scene, but 88 3-star, again, just a really high quality, high floor prospect, 6'3", 220 pounds, is basically strictly an edge in high school. But Oklahoma likes this guy as an inside linebacker. And Josh, I got to give you props, being the recruiting expert you are. You have banged the drum as much as anybody saying, hey, the linebacker class is the last few years have been relatively light. And
right.
It is fascinating that they're looking at someone who, again, primarily a pass rusher at the prep level. Nate Dreiling kind of leading the charge here. The Sooners, this linebacker-centric staff, they're getting ready to sell this guy in Dane on the idea of playing inside backer within this structure, within this defensive system. And this guy was a former Duke commit, reopened his recruitment. A number of high-profile programs in the SEC and the Big Ten are looking at this guy. I know Vanderbilt has been heavy after Dane Bathurst, and I believe he visited there not too long ago, so the Commodores are kind of one of the primary contenders, and a few others in the mix. But Dane Bathurst is going to be in Norman, and I'm keeping a close eye on this guy because anytime this OU staff likes someone at linebacker and they can really kind of flex their muscles in terms of the pitch, you never really know. And then the other thing for me on the way out, maybe a couple of surprise visitors coming to Norman this weekend in 2026. Guys, I'll keep to our VIP subscribers. So again, Sooners Pod 60, go hop on the board, check out the visitor list. But they're going to bring in a few guys and at least examine maybe a few final push type of players. And with those guys set to be on campus this weekend, it could be yet another productive weekend in 26 before the big OV weekend that's coming up for the LSU game.
Yeah, no, I won't spoil either. Several guys, though, and some that are obviously committed to other places right now that Oklahoma's going to have in this weekend. It's crazy. Again, signing day less than 2 weeks away, but Oklahoma been so active in 2026. This class is huge, and they're looking to add more to it. It's going to be a big, big group. But yeah, with Bathurst, you mentioned, I mean, last year or 2 cycles ago now, you're talking about 26, 27. You just signed James Nesta. You just had the one. And now in 26 right now, you have Ja'Cory Smith and then Bo Jandra, right, is coming in as a linebacker. But that's it. So, I mean, it's a few cycles in a row of it being, like we said, not adding a ton of guys. And now going into next year, we'll see what Kip Lewis decides to do, Kobe McKenzie decides to do. But it's like you don't have a ton of bodies there in that room. So it would make sense to me to add another dude in there. And I don't know, you'd have a better sense of it in terms of he's playing edge in high school, how he kind of fits in with Smith and potentially Jandro also, like how that kind of group would look as a cohesive unit there. But, it makes sense to try and add another body to the linebacker room if you could do it. So I'm in on it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to monitor. I think that he would be a complimentary piece, and we'll talk about that more if and when the time comes.
Sure, right.
Another thing that we got to talk about, maybe the other primary storyline before I get into some other nuggets, this is the 2027 quarterback weekend. At least on paper, we're going to see the Sooners finally take some official steps towards examining signal callers in the 27 cycle. So Dane Weber, a 3-star quarterback out of California. We know what they're doing out on the West Coast. 6'2", 210 pounds, another 88 3-star, just a really solid football player, is a composite 4-star prospect. This is someone that Oklahoma has had on the schedule for a while now. He announced his intent to go by Norman a couple of weeks ago. So this has been on the slate. This is something that people have been looking forward to. And then relatively newer, even though OU's been monitoring him behind the scenes, is Jamison Roberts out of Saraland, Alabama. 6'3", 190 pounds. Isn't officially ranked yet. That is coming because this is a prospect with a lot of potential, a lot of ceiling. And so the 24/7 Sports scouting team is still doing its best to evaluate Roberts properly because it's a very intriguing arm in 27. And obviously the 26 update just finished. So those two quarterbacks are going to be in town this weekend. I put together a notebook a couple of weeks ago too, highlighting a few other quarterback talents at 27 that I had heard as potential options. I'm curious to see what happens here. It is, let me emphasize this, it is worth noting neither one of these guys has the official offer yet. So it's one thing for them to visit. We have to see if OU ends up actually pulling the trigger and go ahead and presenting one of these guys, if not both, with an offer or an opportunity. We know the scouting staff likes to get the verifieds, the height, weights, the arms, and all that good stuff. Get some data in there. You got to assume that's going to be baked into the visit weekend. And depending on the way this thing goes, man, we might have a name or two officially for OU at quarterback in 2027.
No, and that's the super interesting aspect, because we talked about just a minute ago how great of a start it is in 27. 7 guys in, and you have the number 2 class right now in the 24/7 Sports team composite rankings. But you don't have the quarterback. That's kind of the big thing. Typically, these classes that are really, really good have the quarterback early. It's like one of the first few guys. You kind of build it out from there. That's the one thing kind of missing, if you want to put it that way, in that cycle right now. So interesting to get some names here. Obviously, Peyton Houston was their guy for so long, and kind of finding where they want to land. Weber, California guy, he is a composite 4, kind of looking into him a little bit, which is interesting. And Roberts, that's another intriguing one. Like you said, not ranked just yet. That's going to come in due time for him, but 6'3" in SEC territory there in Alabama. Like that's an interesting one that I'm curious to see how that one kind of unfolds a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of the one thing. I mean, it's super early. It's 7 guys. So you're going to add a bunch more. It's a long way until 27 is like done. But you want to get the quarterback in to kind of build out your offensive, kind of grouping from there, especially like wide receivers and stuff. So interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And the last interesting note for me, there's a ton more, and I'm going to have a few recruiting notebooks.
It's a pretty good list. It maybe not like, you have a better sense of it. I'm kind of just perusing it. It's maybe not like Auburn level or one of those big early September weekends, but there's a lot of dudes on here.
And I should say for the record too, like, it's worth mentioning it's an 11 a.m. kick in later November.
Playoffs, high school playoffs, yeah.
High school playoffs are going on. There's weather. I mean, it's storming outside my window right now, so I apologize if that's been picked up on the mic. My dog is freaking out
rain all day
under the desk. So there's travel, there's timing, there's playoffs. Like I think we all kind of knew that this was going to be the game that was going to be a little bit tricky for Oklahoma to bring some guys in.
Yeah.
That they have a pretty solid group coming into town. And the guy that there are a lot of guys on that list that I would like to talk about. In the interest of time, the final one I'm going to touch on, Trey Moore, 4-star 2027 wide receiver. I think people who have followed the show know that this is a personal favorite of mine. Pflugerville Weiss, they're going to bring in a ton of guys this weekend. So that whole high school football team basically is going to be visiting OU. I know their head coach well. I know some of those staffers well. So very cool for me to see. But why I think a lot of Oklahoma fans should be excited about this too. Trey Moore is an elite wide receiver prospect. Genuinely one of the best talents that you will find in the South Central region and across the country. We've mentioned this in the past. He's an OU legacy. His father, Eric Moore, who starred at Dallas Carter in high school, played at OU in the mid to late 90s, but that was back when things weren't going so well in Norman. And so I've written a couple stories at Sooners Illustrated about not only Trey, but his dad, Eric Moore, who they've both talked about how it's been cool for Eric to see the way that Oklahoma has changed over the years since his playing days. And obviously Eric was very emotional whenever Trey got the offer. But on top of that, he has a number of different ties to the state of Oklahoma. I had a brother, if I remember correctly, who played basketball at Oral Roberts. Another relative who played, I want to say, lower level football somewhere in the state. Blanking on all the connections currently, but basically this guy has every reason to examine OU as a potential destination. And I'm just going to be honest with you, Josh, he is not. He really hasn't over the last few months. And it looked like for a while there, he was not going to take a trip to Norman at all this season. And the likes of a Texas A&M, and Alabama, they were all in far better standing than Oklahoma. OU was kind of on the outside looking in for a guy who, again, a number of connections to the state and the Sooners. This visit now put together, I find this very interesting because, again, I didn't think that Trey was going to make it to campus during the 2025 season. Now that's set to happen, and we talk about it. the way that Oklahoma is winning, they can go do it again, and they can at least, put together another solid pitch with this guy on an unofficial trip. You never know, especially when you're talking about a prospect with the connections that Trey Moore has.
No, more super interesting one. Just kind of one of those like what it looks like type of players. 6'3", 200 pounds from Texas kid. Like he's a high 4-star for us. Like he's one of those dudes. And we talked about it a lot. What they've done in 27 so far. You already have Damari DeZern in there, who's another one that we talked about is one that is worth being very excited about. Jackson Stokes and all those O linemen. If we just talked about the quarterbacks, like you're in position to have quite a group. So we'll see. That's a big one to keep an eye on. If you compare him with DeZern, that when you're talking about trying to get one of these quarterbacks, I would think that's pretty attractive. Just those two guys right there before you even add and the 5-star tackles, and obviously Cooper Hackett. Yeah. So a lot to like for any potential 27 QB already, but especially if you can get a guy like Trey Moore in there as well. So very definitely an interesting one to keep an eye on for sure. And the full list, again, is over on Sooners Illustrated. It's long, a lot of names. We're not going to hit them all, but those are some of the key ones. And again, there's many, many more, even just in like I said, in 2026, bunch more in 27, even some 2028s. And Collin's even got a couple of 2029s on here. So it's a long 2029. How's that make you feel?
Old and tired.
Yeah.
And, well, it's crazy that the 2026 signing period is coming up in basically 2 weeks, and we're also talking 2029. So, yeah, I think it's about 50 guys they're expecting. 50, 55, maybe a few more late additions, but it's a pretty good group, again, considering the circumstances, some external factors they're going up.
No doubt. It's going to be a huge game, huge weekend, Norman. Really looking forward to it on Saturday. The Ole Miss game feels like just a lifetime ago. So nice to be back here in Norman this weekend, and it'll be quite a scene. I'm expecting, again, I said it earlier, but 11 a.m., I'm expecting a really, really good crowd for this game because it's just fans can taste it. And we'll get into the game preview certainly on Friday with Tom Green. He'll join Collin and I, and we'll lay it all out as far as what we're expecting with the matchup, the Sooners and the Tigers. Before we go, I did want to mention the playoff rankings came out obviously on Tuesday night. Oklahoma coming in at number 8 in the third week of the CFP rankings. Obviously, Collin, at this point, like we've kind of known for a while, if Oklahoma wins their games, they're going to be in the field. That's not really where the intrigue lies with the rankings. The intrigue for me, and I'll open it up to you to get your thoughts, obviously, as well. But, when you're talking about when they went out, where Oklahoma could land, and in particular, could they get a home game is really kind of the question. Because, again, if they're 10-2, Oklahoma's going to be in the field. That's not a question at all. But could they get to that top 8? At face value, they're number 8 right now. So you're thinking, well, if they win their next 2 games, they're not going to go down. I'm not so sure because Alabama at number 10, and I know they beat Alabama, but if the Crimson Tide win the Iron Bowl, they're going to be in the SEC championship game. And if they win the SEC, I have a very hard time seeing anywhere where Alabama does not get inside at least the top 8, maybe even the top 4, and getting a bye if Alabama wins the SEC. And obviously, if that happens, Oklahoma would slide down and they go down to that 9 spot, and then they wouldn't be hosting anymore. They'd be going on the road. So basically what it boils down to, I still think Oklahoma needs another team to lose. The most obvious and simple would be Oregon. They play USC at home this weekend. So I'm not sure Oklahoma fans want to be pulling for Lincoln Riley necessarily, but he could do OU a solid, really, if USC were to beat Oregon this weekend, or maybe you get a Texas Tech loss somewhere. Maybe Ole Miss trips up in the Egg Bowl, or, maybe Tech gets beat, like I said, or even maybe Georgia stumbles against Georgia Tech. But right now, Collin, it seems like it's actually not as cut and dry for Oklahoma to get a home playoff game as maybe we would have thought a week or 2 ago. I still think maybe they need 1 or 2 more dominoes to fall before we get to December, I think 6th it is, when the bracket comes out.
Yeah, I find it very interesting. Obviously, the Alabama dynamic at play for several reasons is going to be one for Oklahoma fans to monitor. Like you mentioned, there are some few key dominoes you would rather have fall just to feel a little bit better about your definite outcome of potentially hosting a home playoff game. But I think at the end of the day, for me too, it's why I find it interesting. I mean, Oklahoma is going to have as good of a resume as anybody in the country when it's all said and done. And on its own standing, it will have an argument to have the opportunity to host a home playoff game.
And you can make the argument they should be ahead of Oregon now. And I would listen to that argument. I know they have 2 losses and Oregon only has 1, but Oklahoma, the wins they have, I mean, Oregon doesn't have a win anywhere close to winning in Tuscaloosa. Obviously, Oregon's best win was winning at Iowa, which I would say is comparable maybe to winning in Knoxville. I don't know. But Oklahoma also has the Michigan win. Like, the issue is that Oregon is ahead of Oklahoma right now. And so you have to try and figure out, is that going to change? Oregon plays USC this weekend. They end with Washington. I guess where I'm at is if they're not ahead of them now, I don't know why it would change before we get to the bracket. But I would, you could argue Oklahoma should be ahead of Oregon right now, and I would listen to that argument.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Oregon's, like you mentioned, they got a huge game, probably the game of the weekend, if you want to call it that, against USC. I just find it interesting too, because it's like Oklahoma right now is essentially, I believe, tied with the most AP ranked wins across the country.
Most of anyone.
They'll have another opportunity at a ranked win, at least on paper, coming up this weekend against Mizzou, who's number 22 in the playoff rankings. So this weekend presents another opportunity for a resume boost, a resume that, again, I believe is as strong as anybody's. And so I guess what I'm saying is we're going to get to the end of this thing, and if Oklahoma takes care of business, does what it needs to do, controls its own path, then you would think they would earn the right to host a home playoff game. But I'm glad you brought it up because, again, it's not as cut and dry as maybe we perceive it to be. I think this adds yet another fascinating layer to kind of the dynamic that lies ahead.
Yeah, and it is fun to think about the bracket the way it is right now, because the way the current bracket is set up, it would be Notre Dame coming to Norman in a 9-8 matchup, which I mean, my God, that'd be unbelievable.
If there's a way for just nothing to change right now, and we can just push this current setup.
Well, the other thing, you're wearing the quarter zip right now. It would be OU Notre Dame in the first round with the winner playing Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Oh, what a world that would be.
I know everyone gets in their feelings about the Rose Bowl game. I
never been. I wasn't there in 2017. That predates me. So I would love to go.
It's the best game I have ever been to in my life. That's the best game.
I'd love to go.
I don't even care if you got to play Ohio State. Let's just get back to Pasadena because that was like the best weekend I've ever had. Even when, the game went the way that it did.
It is fun to think about, too. I just mentioned earlier that if you're an OU fan, you're rooting for USC this weekend to beat Oregon because it helps you. But also, I mean, have you let your mind wander to if USC does win out, they could end up in Norman, which that would be – there's no way – there's no argument. I think it definitely – I mean, there's been some huge Nebraska matchups and certainly Bedlam. I'd be hard-pressed to say there's ever been a bigger game played on Owen Field than Oklahoma USC in the playoff with all the storylines. It'd be perfection. It'd be unbelievable. I mean, the thought of it just gets me unbelievably juiced. We got a long way to go to get to that, but if USC wins this week, if both USC and OU win this weekend, it gets real. Put it that way. It gets very real. So fun to think
I don't know, man. I'm going to get flack for this. I want no part of that. I don't want any part of that game. Yes, it would be great. It would be incredible. It would be great for the fan base. It would be great for business. I just give me Notre Dame and Norman because even the thought that something could go wrong in that setting, oh boy.
It would be very high or very low coming out of that. It'd be the highest high or the lowest low.
You talk about the biggest games. That would either be the peak of program vibes in Norman or man.
I mean, short of a national championship, I don't know how you have a bigger game with everything that would be on the line. But hopefully, we'll see if it actually comes to fruition. There's a path to it, which is exciting, but
go win against number 22 Mizzou this weekend.
Yeah.
Let's
I don't expect USC to win in Eugene either for what it's worth, but You never know. They
Yeah.
could. I mean, they're playing okay football right now. Yeah, they could. I don't think Oregon.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Oregon's team not great. It is in Eugene, which is a big difference. Autzen obviously is a great place, but we'll see. It's gonna be fun. Gonna be a fun finish to the season here. It's fun that we get to talk about this stuff. We get to care about
it's. I do miss. I will say, now we bring ourselves back to reality. I will just say, I have missed the days of tuning into the playoff rankings show and being on the edge of your seat.
I know.
Being like, who are they playing? Where are they going to play?
Well, that's the Sunday.
Most adrenaline rush of all time.
Oh, man. That Sunday is going to be insane because, obviously, if Oklahoma wins these next 2 weeks, we know they're going to be in. But, yeah, like you said, the heart pounding of where is the game? Who are they playing? Who are they lined up to play in the second round if they were to get there? Yeah. It's going to be wild. But Oklahoma's got to handle their business first, obviously, and we'll have to get into that on the game preview tomorrow, but in position to do so. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun finish next few weeks.
So glad this stuff is back for Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
So glad it's back.
No doubt. All right, I think that's it for now. Collin and I will step aside. Again, full visitor list and lots of recruiting info. Collin's been all over it this week over on Sooners Illustrated. We'll be back tomorrow, the two of us, along with Tom Green, for the game preview. We're going to break all the angles down of Oklahoma and Missouri, give our keys to the game, and we'll make our final score predictions for Saturday as the Sooners take on the Tigers. That's it for now. For Collin Kennedy, I'm Josh Callaway, signing off with you next time, right back here as always on Sooners Illustrated.